Hey everyone, Allyson Berger here, and we're live at NAB 2017 with Beef Terrific and LiveU. Now, one of the really big topics this year at NAB, once again, is drones. But when you think of drones, you may not think of the topic and the viewpoint that I'm thinking of right now, which is news gathering and beyond. And I have three very nice gentlemen with me to talk about it. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Sure, I'm Dave Bowen. I'm the Senior Director of Special Projects at Measure. So Measure is a commercial drone services provider. We're based in Washington, D.C., but we have a network of pilots and a fleet of drones throughout the U.S., and we're performing thousands of inspections over the past year in applications ranging from energy infrastructure inspection, telco tower inspection, all the way to news gathering and media broadcasting. So.
Nice.
I'm Adam Lisberg. I'm the North American Communications Director for DJI. We're the world's largest manufacturer of drones, and increasingly we're seeing a lot of demand from broadcasters, both traditional and non-traditional, who want to be able to stream live from an aerial platform.
All right.
And I'm Matt Gibbs. I am the Director of Sales Engineering for LiveU. And as you might know, LiveU is the means to get that video from the drone back to wherever you need it, the station, your corporate office, studio, that kind of thing.
Well, thank you guys for joining me. I'm really excited to learn more about drones, as I'm sure a lot of our viewers are right now. Now, Adam, you brought over this drone that we have on our table right here. Tell me a little about it.
This is the Inspire 2. It's a drone that we released in November, and it's custom designed to focus on what professional film, video, and TV directors, camera operators, production crews need to be able to capture compelling video from the air, transmit it back, get it onto the air in the most efficient way possible. You know, we talk a lot about the particular specs of products and about, you know, what has an HDMI out versus an SDI out and those kinds of technical matters. But as more and more companies across the country are getting fleets of drones for their news gathering operations, integrating it into your workflow is as much of a challenge as getting a bird up in the air.
Right.
That, you know, think of what TV stations in America would look like without tape loggers. You know, they'd be drowning every day just trying to find file tape of someone who walked through a courthouse 2 years ago. And you're going to end up with the same kind of situation if you aren't able to manage the feeds and the recorded video coming off of drones immediately. So,
how have you been finding the news stations to adjust to this? Are they having a hard time embracing the drone capabilities and using them, or are some of them hesitant because they're more old school and they're like, oh, I'd rather use my helicopter and send my guy out? What type of reaction are you getting?
Most of the resistance that we see tends to come from legal and government relations officers who are concerned because so much area of both privacy law and airspace regulation is still undefined. The FAA has done a very good job of making clear that drones are good for America. They've set up a reasonable licensing system for people to be licensed to fly drones, understanding the airspace requirements around them. But there's still a lot of corporate resistance to that. You know, they worry what's the worst that can happen with a drone. They know what's the worst that can happen with a microwave truck or with a camera crew out in the field. They're still learning about experience here.
But if they're getting compared to helicopters, and the only difference is, you know, you're technically saving a life by using a drone. You're not putting someone up in the air. Sure. What's the hesitation? Sure.
Because so much of it is uncertain that, you know, lawyers don't like uncertainty, even though that's where they make their money. So those kinds of regulatory concerns, they will be dealt with as drones become more widely available. To the beginning of your question, I guarantee you, every TV station in America, every newspaper in America has somebody working in their photo lab who's already flying a drone, playing with a drone, loving a drone, and they are jumping at the opportunity to be part of the team that gets these up in the air for routine, regular news gathering.
And I've seen that on my travels. I've seen, even 3 years ago, been a lot of stations who've had these sitting in boxes waiting for legal to say, okay, go. So they've been just waiting to deploy these things out in the field. And now, within the last year, I think the FAA has done some rules and given some licenses and permits and stuff like that. So we've seen a lot of news stations now, especially for weather. Weather's been a huge aftermath weather stuff. I know you with Measure last year did a lot of hurricane aftermath footage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's worth emphasizing that the regulations right now are somewhat restrictive, and that's one of the reasons that a company like Measure that's solely focused on drone operations and has a great deal. We're based in DC, we interact with the FAA all the time, and we're great at we're great at getting regulatory approvals to fly in certain areas. So I mean that's one of the reasons that the stations are working with us, and also using an outsourced provider mitigates risk, and risk mitigation, as as Adam said, is a big issue for a lot of stations.
Darn legal, always taking all the fun out of everything.
But the more drones are out there, the more people use them safely, the more people see the results, the easier it is for the corporate legal department to recognize that it matters. And if you're one of 10 roofing contractors in town, the first guy starts using a drone, you might be okay being number 7 or number 8. If you're the first TV station in town to use a drone, your competitors are going to be up in the air the next week.
So how long do you think it's going to take until all news stations across the country are starting to use drones instead of helicopters, or just, as an assistance in their broadcast?
I mean, I would say, Adam said this before, but pretty much every national network is using drones right now. And amongst the local stations, a good portion are using them or working with third-party service providers, right? I mean, I think the value is clear. I mean, it's right in front of your eyes. You see the compelling imagery that drones can take, and then you know that it's a cost-effective means of doing that when compared to traditional methods.
I wanted to ask you about that. How's the cost factoring into all of this?
Well, so just a lot of the helicopters are going away. So either some markets are getting rid of all their helicopters, or they're getting one helicopter and they're sharing it with all the stations in the market. So there's a lot of markets doing that because they can afford it. They don't want to pay for the liability. There's a lot of liability, insurance in helicopters, fuel. The time it takes to deploy a helicopter could be a lot longer than the breaking news footage that they need to get there with. So as the helicopters go away, these are there to replace that.
Well, and there's some stations that can't afford helicopters right now in smaller markets, and using drones gives them this totally new aerial perspective that they didn't have before.
Yeah. So it's a great selling point for the smaller markets.
Oh yes, TV stations are buying these as fast as we can make them. They don't replace a helicopter in every circumstance. You can't follow a car chase. You can't, under most circumstances, go above 400 feet. You can't stay in the air for the 5 o'clock and the 6 o'clock news without coming down and getting more batteries. You can't fly at night without a special permission. You can't fly in rain. Unless you're really... But on the other hand, you could crash one of these into the ocean at the end of every broadcast, and it would still be cheaper than putting a helicopter in the air.
Well, and then to even expand upon that, so the cherry blossoms were blooming about a month ago in Northern California, and one of the stations up there actually took their drone and flew it in between the trees. It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was just flying right between the cherry blossoms. Had an awesome shot that you would never be able to get. Super steady, super smooth, flying right through the fields.
Yeah.
And you would never get that with anything else.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. In the back of our minds, I think we're all thinking about breaking news scenarios, showing the car crash, showing the chase, showing the fire. But the more affordable these are, the simpler they are to use, the more likely you're going to send one out with every crew. And a good photographer is going to say, we're doing the cherry blossom story. I'm not just going to do this from the ground. I'm doing a feature on the new program at the school. Well, why not, fly gently around in the background while they're climbing on the new playground equipment, things like that. It's a great, that's why you see so much photographic interest in drones in the first place. It's an entirely new perspective for a lot of people.
It's going to change the way we watch news, how we take it in. We already are doing that with all the live streaming. This is completely game changer.
Yep.
Yeah, and to that, with the another station in Northern California a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, Candlestick Park, where the Giants and the Niners played, got demolished. So they had a drone they hired out, and they actually got to see the demolition of that, and they use a streaming capability to get that back to the station to go live. And that's been used a lot like that. Another case where there was a TV station, again in Northern California, for all these storms. A bridge had collapsed, and you couldn't get close to the bridge up in the mountains. So they had a drone not only showing the top of the bridge, but under the bridge and what had happened to that. No way you would get that with a helicopter, with the guy on a camera, or anything like that at all.
Definitely.
And they can use something like LiveU to feed that back live to the station, to either be live on air or recorded or
You're making me think I need to start watching the local news in California more often.
Well, honestly, the weather has been so crazy in Northern California with the flooding. Again, they had floods in San Jose. Again, the drone showed the floods in San Jose and went live with that. The spillway in Sacramento disintegrated, and they were worried that was going to pretty much wipe out the town with all the water. Just weather is a great use for the drones to see that go down low, see it high, and do it quickly.
Yeah, and actually, speaking of California, we were just out with the station in LA last week, and we covered a great story that was focused on the oil production that's taking place within Los Angeles city boundaries. So, there's a reporter on the scene, and then we had our team with a drone. We were using LiveU technology to broadcast it live, and it switched. The reporter set up the story, and then we switched to this panoramic view of these oil production facilities. Wow. But it wasn't just. I mean, I think part of the difference is the dynamism that you get in the shots that drone set up, which is a little bit different, I think, from some of the helicopter shots that are currently available. So it's the cinematic appeal is really astounding.
Can we talk a little bit more about the live streaming aspect of it and getting back to home base? Because that's really all three of you put together. You're the magic team. You're making this happen. So talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. So on the DJI stuff, they have the ability to do HDMI and SDI outputs, which configure with our units. So you plug that in our unit. So anywhere you are, you can then feed that video back, transmit back to the studio. So whether it be broadcast. It could be, there's some applications for inspections. So maybe the broadcaster wants to go look at their microwave tower, their satellite dishes. Instead of hiring a guy who needs to climb the tower, they could get a drone to inspect the tower, the microwave, or look at the satellite dishes, and they can send that back to an engineer back in the studio and take a look at it rather than having to climb the towers, or they can monitor the feed that way.
We've done that ourselves too. We were out with Verizon actually after Hurricane Matthew. They had a down tower in North Carolina. The whole area was flooded. It was hard to access it on foot. So we sent a drone. We're flying within line of sight, and flew right up to the tower and did this sweeping view. We're using LiveU technology to beam it back to their engineers, and they were able to pinpoint exactly what was going on, figure out what tools they needed to go fix the tower, get it back online for their customers.
Are you finding that the new stations are sending the drones just from the station itself and just going out, or are they going somewhat closer to the distance or to the location and then sending it out, or a little of both?
Well, so they have, per FAA regulations, the drone has to be piloted within the visual line of sight of the operator. So in each case, they're sending it, with a pilot, not just from the station itself. However, when our pilot is equipped with a LiveU unit, it really gives them the flexibility to go pretty much anywhere and broadcast that live shot back to the desk at the station, where they can put it in the story however they see fit.
It's really mind-blowing. It's crazy that this is how it's going.
And what's mind-blowing right now is going to be utterly routine 5 years from now.
Right.
Every crew is going to go out and be broadcasting with a drone shot.
Well, yeah, I mean, your news van is going to be your camera, your tripod, and then now your drone. So it's going to be, okay, now we are, there's, we're going to check out the ski runs. How is the snowpack doing? Let's bring out the drone. Let's check out the mountains with the snow, see how that's doing. Or, let's go check out the marathon. Let's see what the marathon looks like, or that kind of thing. So it's going to be a tool in the news van, along with the camera, the tripod, your lighting, and for the price point, you can do that.
That makes a really good point, because I know from local affiliates and working for them, and I can only imagine that it's also going to cut down the cost of the live trucks, because you're not going to need all of that heavy equipment and all the dishes, because I'm sure that's going to become obsolete sooner than later anyway.
Yeah, we're surrounded by equipment here that is replacing live trucks even as we speak.
Right, exactly. I mean, LiveU is part of that. So we've got a lot of people who either build out new trucks with LiveU technology in it, or they have old trucks that have, are now outdated. Instead of upgrading those trucks for a lot of money, they use LiveU instead to do that. And now you've got people going out with little hatchbacks and cameras and drones and LiveU, and they're able to cover everything for a fraction of the cost of a full-on truck.
Are you having any issues with compatibility with any of the stations? Or is that any of the hurdles that you're finding that you need to get over, or is it mixing and matching and fitting into the puzzle perfectly? Yeah,
we haven't had too much trouble with any of the local stations, using LiveU technology. I mean, there's always a few challenges that you run into. Sometimes, if we're plugging directly into, this isn't a LiveU problem actually, but and I think DJI just has introduced a new piece of equipment to address this, but we had a challenge plugging, the HDMI out cable that's coming off of the drone directly into the SDI ports in the satellite trucks. But I believe there's a solution for that.
48 hours ago, we announced a new controller that has an SDI output direct.
Just super awesome.
Congratulations. You've had a few announcements for the NAB this year.
Yeah, it's such a rapidly changing technology, and we've been able to take the same. Let's hope this works here. The same technology that keeps the camera pointing in the same direction while I'm pretending to be the wind and all sorts of other things, knocking the drone around. You see how the camera stays stable?
Right.
We put that to use in a handheld.
Can I hold it?
Yeah, of course
I've
you
never
can.
held a drone before. Is it heavy?
Here. It's depends which drone. This one's not too bad, but yeah, pick it up by the center
Well,
there.
does that have... Ooh.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Oh, boy. Oh, it kind of... No.
Yeah, and most of
there we
that is
go.
the batteries,
All right.
to be honest. If I took the
You
batteries
did this
off
with
of
much
there,
better ease than I did.
I've been doing a little longer. But we make smaller ones too. If you don't need to be broadcasting live to network TV.
When you're a small person, you prefer smaller things.
Yeah, but the same technology in the gimbal that keeps the camera focused despite the wind, we introduced a new product here designed for full-fledged movie making down to broadcasting and other things that uses that same technology to keep a camera centered, whether you're handheld, on a Steadicam, on a Ready Rig, on all sorts of different kind of motion picture platforms. So you're seeing cross-pollination about different kinds of technology, and the result is a really new, rich visual experience, not just for the people who make the images, but for the people who consume them.
Now, there was the weight. No, this drone was made for broadcasting, you told me.
Correct.
So is the weight and the mechanics that's within it, does it change depending if it's, more for a creative aspect than...
Sure, yeah. This drone, for example, it has, in addition to the main camera here, which shoots near cinema quality imagery, it has a smaller 2-axis camera in front. So you could operate this with 2 controllers. You have one pilot who's looking through that view just to make sure staying away from any obstacles and navigating correctly, while another operator holding the same kind of controller is focused solely on making sure this camera is photographing what you want.
Wow.
So, it gives you much more supple controls over what you're doing in the air. And this particular model took a lot of the encoding to be able to use Apple ProRes, H.264, H.265, and that encoding is done in the body of the drone, so it's not in the lens adding weight there. Helps with the balancing and with the overall processing system. So, and these kinds of innovations that you see in a broadcasting drone, many of them are also integrated into our newer drones that are capable of a lot of industrial, commercial, professional processes. So, we're talking here about broadcasting live streaming for TV and movies, say, but a lot of industrial customers, they also have need to be able to look at that inspection of a remote cell tower in real time back at headquarters. We have some software solutions for that. You guys have a lot of experience integrating that kind of workflow there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the applications of drone technology are really endless. And, broadcasting is one of them. I mentioned it before, but, we're focused as well on telecommunications tower inspection, energy infrastructure inspection, and architecture, engineering, construction work. And honestly, in each of these verticals, there are needs for live streaming, the imagery and the data that's coming off of these drones.
Well, and then another thing. So this camera is awesome for cinema, and great optics and everything. So what you can actually do, one of the new things now is, so you've got a director, they sit at Video Village and they watch the shot, make sure they get the shot they want. Well, now they could send out a second unit with the drone, go get some shots of, some landscape shots. That director then can be, back in New York. The drone is somewhere in Montana getting some awesome aerials, and LiveU can be used to send that back to New York as a Video Village kind of a thing, and to say, okay, that's a great shot, let's do that again, go a little lower, go a little higher. So it really does go beyond inspection or broadcast or whatever it is. And cinema now with the LiveU and with that, you can have your director anywhere globally watching your feed.
Really making things a lot easier.
It
Absolutely.
is. Yeah.
And that's all you want in a product. Ease,
Yeah,
compatibility.
You're judged by your ratings. Your ratings come based on your results, and you want the imagery to be compelling, and you also kind of want it to be seamless.
Right.
I mean, it's interesting. We're talking about the progression of the technology, and it's amazing how quickly new iterations of drone technology, of the live broadcasting technology come out. And to sort of go back to your your question from before about, if we're talking about the stations, are there any stumbling blocks to integrating this technology into their workflows? I would say, actually, if anything, it's from a creative perspective, people are still sort of figuring out how they can use these shots. I mean, I think the drone technology, LiveU's technology, it's really expanded what you're capable of doing. And now I think people are still sort of figuring out how they're going to maximize that for get the most visual impact.
Every time we come out with a new product, people say, that's amazing, I want to do this, I want to do that. And then there's a very short time before they start saying, why can't I do this? How could I also have added to that capability? Can you put that in there?
It's pushing people to get out of the box and think out of the box and keep pushing the limits.
Yep,
and with a drone that can go in the air, the sky is the limit.
There you go.
No pun intended. Well, guys, you've given me so much knowledge that I really had no idea about, and I'm sure that our viewers at home, there's only so much you can know at one point, and if they can't come to be here, I think you shared that with them. That's great. Well, thank you guys so much for sharing your time with me.
Very welcome.
And telling me all about these drones. I'm going to get a workout the next time I go to LiveU.
We'll start with a smaller one. It's a little easier to practice on.
We'll work our way up. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm Allyson Berger with Be Terrific. We'll see you soon.